Hey everyone, this is a quick Q&A video that I want to do. I've received some questions from you guys. Thank you so much from Instagram and Facebook about psychic mediumship, about astrology, and feel free at any time to send me questions. I will keep them together and make another Q&A video. And I'm just going to basically read through some of the questions and answer them. Okay, so the first question is to do with psychic mediumship, and Kelly asked me, how did I first know that I was psychic? It's a really great question. I love this question. I don't even think I've ever spoken about this on my channel ever, but basically I had something happen when I was 10 years old that really affected me in a very deep way. The story is that I was 10 years old and I remember waking up one morning and I was quite distressed because I'd had a dream that my beautiful cat that I absolutely loved had passed away. It was very sad. Horrible dream. And my mum was there putting her makeup on, like in the next room. I was laying in my bed still and I was looking out the door and I saw her putting her makeup on in her mirror like she always did, you know. And I was like, oh Mum, I had this horrible dream. And she said, what did you dream? And I said, I dreamt that the cat died. And she said, oh, don't worry, it's only a dream. It sort of sounds really cliche, but you know, my mum was always like that, don't worry, you know. And she's Capricorn moon. And so, you know, and my parents, you know, they were pretty skeptical about anything to do with that sort of thing. In general, I grew up in a very sort of non-superstitious, very practical, you know, Italian family with, you know, my parents immigrated from Italy when they were in their 30s or 20s and 30s, and my mum was in her 20s, my dad was in his 30s. But yeah, they were just very practical people. They didn't believe in anything like that. And so, you know, in retrospect, I realised, well, actually, I'll get on with the story. So what happened was, my mum had gone to work and I was home with my older sisters, and, you know, they'd help me get to school. I can't remember. We'd go to school together. But always in the morning, I'd go to feed my cat. Every morning, obviously, I loved my cat. It was a birthday present. I wanted a cat for years. I finally got one and I only had it for a short time. So it's really sad. I went outside and was calling her and just nothing. Like, I couldn't hear anything. So I was really distressed. Like, intuitively as a kid, I knew something was wrong because, you know, my little cat would always come running, you know, every morning, like running and meowing, and, you know, it was beautiful. As you know, if you love cats, right? I'm such a cat person. Anyway, so I went looking for her. So I was carrying like the food in my hand, you know, calling her constantly. And I went out the backyard and into the front yard, and I heard a very faint meowing. And this is very distressing. So if you're an animal lover and you get distressed easily, don't listen to the rest of this. Just skip ahead, because it's actually really, and I'll try not to give too much detail because it's too traumatic. But basically, I found my little kitten, who was very young, and it makes me very emotional still, in a lot of pain and crying. And you know, this is back in the 80s, and my parents were not home. I had no one to go to. My older sister was only, you know, I was 5. She was only not too much older than me, and like she was probably about 13, 14 maybe. Let me think. Yeah, she was about 13, 14, and I just felt very alone with my little cat that no one could help, and I could see she was very badly injured. She must have been hit by a car, and she was just laying in the front garden, and I just started bawling my eyes out, and, you know, I was holding her and she basically died in my arms. And that, for a 10-year-old child, is very traumatic. But the thing was, you know, I had told my mum that morning, and she was my witness, that I dreamt that the cat had passed away. And, you know, it took me a long time to get over that. Like, all I could think about was I'd lost my cat that I loved, and it still makes me emotional right now. You probably can't tell because I've got an Aquarius moon, but it really, to see a little animal in pain like that and to be a child and have to deal with that, it's just too much. I remember crying all day at school to my friend who also loved cats, so she was really sweet to me. But I literally cried for, like, I think it was 2 or 3 days straight, or I was just really upset. I cried at school, I remember, and then at home I sort of was a bit more stoic because my parents were very tough. They were just like, you know, you're still crying sort of thing. But anyway, I love my parents, don't get me wrong. But it's very Italian, you know, they're like, get on with life, you know, be strong. Anyway, so yeah, that was, you know, my first psychic experience, a traumatic one, but often it's the case with many people that you have these type of, you know, it's always around death, I find, you know, when it's the first awakening, if it's a dream or if it's a knowing, you know, you see a lot of, or you'll hear, if you follow, you know, psychic people's experiences, you will hear a lot of stories similar to that, and it's something because it triggers into the emotions, and something that or a person or a pet that you're very attached to, which I was very attached to my cat. So yeah, that was my first psychic experience. I had my mum as a witness, and even though my dad was still very skeptical, he didn't, even after that, and you know, we were told him what had happened, he still was like, he sort of didn't have an answer for it, but he was like, oh, he sort of brushed it off, didn't believe it at all. Like, not that he didn't believe me, but he didn't believe that there's anything much to it, you know. He just thought it was some anomaly of my brain, I guess. I don't know. But that was my first experience, and then I had many more experiences after that. So that was how I sort of knew that there was something more to life than just the material, mundane life, which is what I was taught to believe in, that all there was. So Inky Urchin on Instagram sent me a question. This is the next question. How do you get better at communicating with those who have passed? Really good question as well. Thank you, Inky Urchin. How you get better is with, like anything in life, with practice. Okay, so for me, I practice, you know, every time I do my work. And the reason I say that, I've been doing this work for years, but the reason I say that is because there's always something new to learn from spirit. Like, every single reading is so different. The way spirit communicates in every reading does have slight variations to it. So, as you know, for me, I'm clairaudient. I hear things. I'm clairvoyant. I get visions, or what might be like a daydream as well. I'm clairsentient. I feel things. I feel sensations in my body. I feel sicknesses in my body that they may have had before they passed, or sicknesses even with people around the person that I'm reading for. But how do you get better at it? You basically practice, and you know, it's all about validation. That's the biggest thing I can say. You know, you can't just practice in a bubble. You know, you have to practice on, you know, a client, or I mean, not practicing on a client, but practicing with people that you read for, and validation is a huge part of that. So, you know, you need the validation that what the information that you're getting is correct, that it is true. And usually what I find is, and I'm sure you've heard this before if you read anything about mediumship, is that the information is very specific. You know, it's crazy specific how it is. I had a client come to me for a face-to-face reading last week, and I have to mention, this is the funniest story. I kept seeing a monkey, like a real monkey, not a toy, like just an actual monkey, and I kept feeling there was something funny with this. And I said to the client, look, I don't know what this means to you, but I was connecting with her father who had passed, and I said, he keeps showing me this monkey, and there's some joke about this. And she sort of gasped, and she, you know, her eyes widened, and she said, my sister was bitten by a monkey years ago at a circus. And this lady was in her 70s, so, you know, it was like in the 1940s, I think, or maybe even, I don't know exactly when, but it was years ago, she said, when they were kids. And there was a joke that the dad had, you know, typical Aussie humour, like, oh, did you go a bit funny because you got bitten by the monkey? That was a little running joke in their family, which, you know, very old school joke, but like, it was just such an unusual message, and a very specific message, that I saw the monkey and knew there was a joke in the family about that. So that is how spirit will, you know, often communicate in these little, you know, snippets and bits and pieces. Yeah, it's all a matter of practicing. Like anything, you know, like a skill that you have to practice it, otherwise you can't improve it. So practice is key. So thank you for your question. The next question is, anything else about mediumship? Oh yeah. Pen Bears asked, can tarot oracle cards help to heighten psychic mediumship? Yes, definitely. So for me, actually, the first experiences that I had as an actual medium with reading someone else was through doing tarot readings. So I'd be doing a tarot reading, and I would start to hear names that would come through, and impressions of descriptions of people that were on the other side. And I didn't quite know at first what I was getting. I was kind of like, oh, what is this? This is curious, you know. I just hear a name. That's how it started off, with names. Like, I get full names, like the first name of a person. Sometimes it's an initial, or in a sense whether that initial, like A or J, is connected to a female or male on the other side. But yeah, I often get names and initials, and this is how it started for me. I'd just be doing a tarot spread, and I'd hear a name, and it would just pop in, and then I'd have to sort of dig in a little bit and find out what they're trying to say. And so that's how the mediumship started for me. So yes, you can heighten your psychic mediumship through tarot reading when you're doing it for another person. And always, you know, I tell people it's important to ask for the highest information to come through from love and light. You don't want to be connecting with anything of a lower frequency or a lower vibration. It's not a good idea. You want to make sure you're protecting the work that you do when you're dealing with the other side. It's always about intention and your mindset going in. If you ever pick up on anything negative, you want to sort of close that off. Like, in the sense, when I say negative, I don't mean hardships that people have gone through. I mean dark energies. And, you know, if you're of a certain vibration and you're not meant to be going there, usually your guides will shield you from that, unless you're someone that's meant to be doing soul rescue work or something along those lines, okay? Or some other kind of work where you're dealing with entity attachment, which I don't personally work with that sort of thing in general, though I have dabbled in it accidentally, or not accidentally, but my guides probably help me to sort of help people deal with some darker energies, but not very often. So yes, to answer that question, you can connect with mediumship and heighten your psychic mediumship through tarot cards. It's a tool. It's like opening up an energetic portal to connect with, you know, other energies in the astral and higher astral realms. So I have some astrology questions. Inky Urchin also asked an astrology question. She asked, which aspects create durability in a relationship? So durability, so meaning longevity and you know, stability in the connection. So this is where you want to look at Saturn aspects, okay? Or, you know, in a composite chart, you want to have some Saturn there, whether it's, you know, Saturn making an aspect to the rising, the moon, or, you know, the Venus. You don't want to have too much heavy Saturn, because it can make things very difficult in a relationship, though it's not impossible, but it will take a lot of, you know, determination if you want to keep that connection, because too much Saturn can make things very difficult. But, you know, Saturn trines are good. Saturn trine Venus, Saturn sextile Venus, Saturn sextile Mars, Saturn sextile Ascendant. Sextiles and trines from Saturn are good, though, you know, many married couples have Saturn squares. Saturn square Moon, Saturn square Venus. You know, there are Saturn squares, or even conjunctions, but conjunctions can be a very, they can be very bonding and comfortable, but they can be very hard to break out of if you want to separate from that person. You know, say you want to move on from the relationship because you've been in the relationship a long time and you've learnt what you've had to learn and it's time to move on. When there's a Saturn conjunction, especially Saturn conjunct Moon or Saturn conjunct Sun, it can be very hard to break yourself away from that person. So you want harmonious aspects from Saturn in the synastry and also in the composite chart as well. So I hope that makes sense. Also, Pluto trines are good for longevity in a relationship. Pluto trines do help with that as well. So Pluto trine Sun, Pluto trine Venus, Pluto trine Mars, Pluto sextiles as well. Let me see, a few more questions. Tismo asked, Sun conjunct Moon in Sagittarius, 8th house synastry. All right, so this is quite a powerful energy. Whenever you have 8th house, it's very magnetic, so you're very drawn to each other in a very deep and powerful way. It may be hard to break away from the person again. You may just be like constantly pulled to each other. There can be some either similarities in the way that you see life, because Sagittarius is about your philosophy, your spiritual beliefs. In the 8th house, you may have some similar perspectives that help you to maintain this connection. There can be that the Moon person, the 8th house person, is more emotional than the Sun in the 8th house partner. So the Sun person may be have more of a leadership role, or a bit more stoic than the Moon person, who may struggle more with their emotions in the relationship. But there can be shared philosophy and shared really deep truth connections here. There may be issues that you need to tackle when it comes to things like legal things or paperwork or contracts together. There may be something like that. So Sun and Moon is very good. Sun conjunct Moon is very good because it's a feminine and masculine principle together. So it can be quite harmonious. So the 8th house means you may have to deal with some difficult aspects of life together. Anna asked, can you talk about composite Sun or Moon in the houses? Yes, but I'd have to do a whole video on that because I'd have to go through all the placements. Susan said, another Susan, I'd like more info on the houses in astrology. Which house would our sun sign be in? Okay, so Susan, to know that, you have to go to astro.com, www.astro.com, create a free chart. You need your birth time though, and then you can look at where your sun is placed. The sun is that circle with a dot in the middle. Look at where it's located in what house. So you might need to do a bit of research or go onto YouTube and look at other people that have talked about how to find your sun through the houses, but I can do a video on sun through the houses at some point. Kath asked, have you thought about pick a card for air, water, earth and fire? I have done that before, Kath, but it's not something that I do regularly, obviously, but that's for my other channel, by the way, if you're wondering, do I do pick a card readings? I do on my other channel, but it's more for the weekly astrology. I do the weekly astrology and pick a card reading on Starlight Oracle weekly readings, a different channel, which is my smaller channel. I think that's all of the questions, if I've got them all here. And I will do another Q&A video in the future, hopefully. So do send me your questions. You can even go to the community page here on YouTube and ask me questions there if you'd like. So thank you for watching. If you have any other questions, you can post them below. And I think that's it for today. Bye, guys.